Have you ever felt completely drained at 9 p.m. even though you didn't actually do much this day? You didn't run a marathon and you didn't do anything special, yet you are very, very tired and you just existed. This weight you're feeling could be the weight of the so-called ghost lives you carry. You might ask yourself, what are ghost lives? Don't worry, I will get to this point very quickly. In this video, we're going to look at why your mind is stuck in waiting mode and how to finally silence the noise of 1,000 potential futures. In 2000, psychologists ran a famous study in a high-end grocery store. On day one, they offered the people that were shopping there 24 flavors of jam. It was a hit. People really loved it and they loved the variety. But when it came to buying, it looked different. Only 3% of those people actually took a jar home. The next day, they offered only 6 flavors. Sales didn't just go up, they skyrocketed by 1,000%. You might ask yourself why. It's because when you have 24 options, your brain has to perform a so-called cost-benefit analysis for 23 alternatives for every single jar you pick. This mental labor of making the so-called perfect choice becomes more painful than the reward of the jam, so you don't do anything in the end. Now imagine your life is that grocery store. It sounds silly, but imagine. You aren't choosing jam, of course, you're choosing your identity. Social media and the internet, of course, have added thousands of those jars to your shelf every single day. The store is infinite and you're standing in the aisle paralyzed because the cost of picking the wrong life feels too high to play. But choosing isn't even the hardest part. The real exhaustion starts after the choice is made because of a specific psychological trap most of us fall into. Think of your brain like a computer, because it basically is. Every possible life is an open tab in your mental browser. The what if I moved to Berlin tab, the what if I stayed in my hometown, or I don't know, the what if I stayed with my ex even tab. In psychology, this is known as the Zeigarnik Effect. I'm so sorry, I guess I'm butchering the pronunciation. The brain remembers incomplete or unpursued tasks far more vividly than completed ones. This is what the effect is all about. Because these ghost lives, these lives that could be true, are never finished, your brain never closes the tab and doesn't stop thinking about it in a way. They run in the background, draining your mental RAM and sucking your battery dry, if you will. So you aren't tired because you are doing too much. You could be tired because you're trying to power 10 different versions of yourself on a single battery sometimes when you overthink. But why can't we just pick one? I think we all know this feeling of being so overwhelmed and thinking about all of those different possibilities. But when we do that, we actually know that it's not good for us. It doesn't do anything good for us. But I don't know. We can't just really pick one and be happy. But why is that? Why does better always feel like it's just out of reach? Psychologist Barry Schwartz found that humans generally fall into 2 categories, the so-called satisficers and the maximizers. A satisficer has a good enough threshold. So, for instance, they need a new laptop. Then they find one with the right specs at a fair price and then they just buy it and never think about laptops again. Their brain is at peace. A maximizer, however, needs the absolute best. They read 50 reviews, then compare 20 models, and even after the purchase, they keep checking if the price dropped or if a better model came out. But here's the deep psychological why behind the maximizer's misery. It's the so-called regret anticipation. You start mourning the other options before you even choose. So the choice itself feels like a loss, not a gain. Also, social comparison plays a role. In the past, you compared your life to your neighbor, but now you compare your behind-the-scenes footage to the highlight reels of 8 billion people, and you get to compare your life with literally everyone and all of the people that seem to live a better life as you. That's what you think, though. It doesn't need to be true. It's also important to talk about the so-called adaptation curse. For example, when the new car smell after you buy a car, or I don't know, after you buy anything of a choice wears off after a while because you get used to having it, a maximizer blames themselves, but in reality it's simple biology. They think, I must have picked the wrong one. If I picked the other card, then I would be happy now. So you understand, it goes on like this, on and on and on and on, and you can't be happy in the end at all because you keep on thinking about the other things you could have done. Psychologically, maximizers are chasing an idealized self that doesn't even exist. They are in love with the concept of a perfect life, which makes their actual life feel like a consolation prize. So this creates a lot of anxiety. Every choice feels like a small death because you think, if I do this, then I will never be able to do this, and if I do that, I won't be happy because I didn't do this, and blah, blah, blah. You get what I mean. And that brings us to the so-called dizziness of freedom. Søren Kierkegaard called anxiety the dizziness of freedom. Imagine standing on a cliff. You aren't just afraid of falling, but you're also terrified by the realization that you could throw yourself off. You could throw your phone into the water. I keep on thinking that, I don't know why. I thought I had OCD, but I guess it's kind of normal. You are terrified of your own power to change everything. In this very fast and modern world, we stay in the so-called waiting mode because we are afraid that choosing one path means killing all the other versions of ourselves. So, for example, to marry one person is to get rid of the mystery of everyone else. To commit to one career is to bury the artist, for example, or the explorer within you because you already chose the other career. We then are grieving for people and also for versions of ourselves that don't even exist. We are treating our potential like a museum, so we want to keep everything on display, but we never actually touch anything. So, how do we stop this mourning? How do we live without the crushing weight of what if? Because I think everyone knows this feeling of overthinking. We have to learn the art of the cut. The solution isn't a productivity hack. I'm not one of those channels that give you hacks. I think I'm mostly just yapping. And then you have to give yourself hacks. Sorry. I guess I'm not even helpful at all, but I don't care. So let's rewind. The solution is not a productivity hack in this way. So we don't even need one. It's so-called radical finitude. Think of a bonsai tree. The little small ones, you know? A bonsai isn't beautiful because it grows wild in every direction. It's a masterpiece because of what was cut away. The artist looks at the tree and decides which branches must die so the whole can live. So to heal your exhaustion, you must perform a so-called funeral for your ghost lives. And this sounds something like the Addams Family would do. But I don't know, it doesn't have to be a real funeral, you know what I mean? Maybe just write down the things. This is more than a thought. It's also a mental shift. So you acknowledge what could have been. Admit that by being here as yourself, you are not there. And that is okay. That's not bad, actually. We think that it's bad, but that's not the whole truth. We never know the whole truth. That's also a thing. There is no one truth. Meaning is only found in limitation. As the composer Igor Stravinsky said, the more constraints one imposes, the more one frees oneself. Activate the psychological immune system. When you truly commit to one path, one person or one city or one hobby or one passion, your brain stops looking for better. It stops simulating and starts adapting. It begins to find beauty in the specific details of your reality rather than the vague, I don't know, like glitter and fantasies of your dream life. Peace doesn't come from having more options, it comes from having no more options actually. So you really aren't a failure because you haven't lived 10 different lives. You are a success because you are brave enough to live this one. The exhaustion you feel is just a sign that you have a big heart and a vivid imagination and you want to have a good life. But you don't owe anything to the version of you that doesn't exist. You only owe something to the person sitting here right now watching this video. So close the tabs and let the ghosts go.